Hello there on the 21st of May 2023. Something of a anniversary. 6 years since Twin Peaks: The Return premiered, I believe. Unless I've got it wrong somehow, which is possible. Hello there and welcome. Sorry, just trying to sort my screen out there. As you can see, there's only me here today. I'm somewhat depleted, I'm afraid. You're going to have to just put up with me rambling on for a bit of time. I'm not sure how long. Partly depends upon anybody in the chat having any contributions or questions as well, but I've certainly got quite a few things to ramble on about on my own here today. I Cannes Film Festival and things I've been watching. Get this. Anyway, anybody who's watching right now, I hope I find you well. You can, of course, tell me how you're doing in the chat. So, in no actual order in particular, I'll go dive into something I've watched this week. Let me just... So here we have Grace Zabriskie in season 3 of The Killing. This is the US version, remake of the same show from Denmark, I believe. I've watched all seasons of this, I believe. I'm not sure actually if I've watched all of seasons 1 and 2, which are a bit prolonged really for my taste. But I just wanted to give this a big thumbs up and recommendation to anybody out there who's missed out on watching it. Obviously, it's not new particularly. It started in 2011, back on AMC, I think. This is the American remake with Mireille Enos as a lead detective and Joel Kinnaman as her colleague investigating. And the whole drama starts off with who killed Rosie Larson, and the posters were to that effect, featured Rosie's face with that written on top, presented very much in the same way as the original Twin Peaks, promotional copy kind of covered the show and tried to sort of, get the public hooked, which of course worked, and they were hooked. I think, this show, The Killing, at the start, it's, I think the first season is probably about 10 or more episodes, the second one the same, so it's pretty lengthy, and that could, put some people off. But I would say that the filming style of it and everything and the overall mood that it conveys definitely harks back to Twin Peaks without the sort of surreal elements or so much of the um, harking back to kind of a 50s dreamy vibe, you know. So it's got kind of the, you know, the wet streets of Seattle. It's more sort of a, you know, a coverage of different areas of society, obviously, who are could be involved in this crime, and it does that pretty well. Although, you know, some people like me may find the government aspects not quite so fascinating, but it's certainly highly watchable, and I think the performances by the leads are great. Everyone in it really is very good. It does feature sort of prolonged scenes of weeping and, you know, grief and people crying, and that's something which I would sort of compare to Twin Peaks. Really, I think it's unusual for a TV show to do that, and I think it may have been influenced in that dramatic aspect by Twin Peaks. But I think at the same time, you know, it's its own thing. It's quite stark, quite harsh, perhaps a bit too downbeat in the first season, especially. But I would have to carry on watching really to comment on that. So overall, I give it a big thumbs up and recommend it to anyone out there. The third season does feature a cameo from Grace Zabriskie, so that's something to check out. Ashton T, hi there. I don't know what you mean, Rooster Cogburn, about the hardest of right. Obviously, you're talking politics now or something, but please explain further. Good evening to Gary. Always pleased to see you here, I must say. In terms of the coverage of the Cannes Film Festival, I've certainly not really had a look at anything on it in great detail, apart from, you know, I've noticed photos of Ethan Hawke's there in Pedro Almodovar's new film, Almodovar, how do you say his name? Anyway, you know, but I mean, I don't know about how she looks, but I think that I like her hair, and, you know, she's smoking there as well, which we always associate with Sarah, right? So yeah, she's in season 3 of The Killing, and I really, you know, I can't say enough good things about that show. I've not regarded a lot of things or paid attention to much about Cannes yet, other than obviously Scorsese's new film. I think it's called The Killers of the Flower Moon or The Killers of the Blood Moon, whatever it's called. Anyway, it's got a very good response and been praised as, you know, just a really good stab at making a Western for Scorsese. The film is apparently about 3.5 hours or more, which I don't understand this. I don't understand why anybody would make such a long film. I mean, I am not always a massive fan of Westerns. I perhaps should watch more, especially after watching Once Upon a Time in America, Sergio Leone. But I think Scorsese will bring his own thing to it, so it'll make it worth watching. But I just don't understand or look forward to the prospect of being in a cinema and watch something for that long. And a lot of it just makes me wonder whether things are being made with home viewing in mind now a lot, you know, when people can sit there and watch that in, you know, 2 parts, 3 parts, whatever they want. So thank you for your question there, Ashton. I don't know what this is. I don't know this. Thanks for making me laugh anyway, because it's difficult. Like now, there's not really anyone on here, and it is. Some people have enjoyed shows when it's just me on, but it's not something easy to do for me to come on camera like this, even though I did quite enjoy it. Um, I've always really, like relied on Voltaire, so him not being here is difficult for me. But you know, it is what it is. I just fear I've driven everybody away, but it's probably not that simple, quite that simple anyway. All right, let me just turn this music off a bit now, or even lower. Yeah, thank you for that question, Ashton. It really is funny, and I don't know even where that's coming from. It's as complex or hard for me to fully comprehend as Rooster's comment about the right wing and something to do with Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know. Oh, there we go. So, do I think Cooper has a bisexual nature, as some fans are led to believe? But I've never really seen this. You're obviously talking about the sort of memes and stuff, or there's people have made cartoons and things of Harry and Cooper, um, like in love or something. The There was a behind the scenes bit of footage where the actors Michael Onkin and Carl McLaughlin did sort of like pretend, kiss each other. It was pretty much a full on kiss. So, but I don't get any feeling that Cooper is bisexual. No. In terms of that kind of thing within the show, I mean, somebody like Harold Smith maybe could be. Denise Bryson, I don't quite know, but Denise Bryson, I presumed would be gay, but that's not. I don't know actually. Probably not. It's probably just transvestite, because he says something about putting her tights on one leg at a time or something. I didn't understand what that means, but it's still like a male thing to do, I suppose. That's what they mean. I don't know. If you can give me any example of Cooper showing himself to be bisexual, fine. So, but I've not noticed them myself. Oh yeah, to get to the Cannes review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Yeah, I mean, it's been. I don't think it's so much just at Cannes, but it certainly seems to be a lot of people who have seen it at Cannes, or I don't know. There's a lot of people certainly making videos about it who probably haven't seen it, but I think the harsh response to it, especially at Cannes, is probably half to be expected. But I mean, it is a shame. I would hope that the film kind of did better than that with critics, but then at the same time, as certain tepid responses, and I've read a few of them. They say that the film kind of works in fits and starts. It has its moments, but then at other times it just doesn't, or is just they're not keen. Whatever, it's just not the same kind of action as they would hope. Doesn't have the kind of style that Spielberg would have brought to it. But on the other hand, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, that didn't have quite so much of what Spielberg may have brought to it. So it's a bit of a difficult thing to judge. I read one review that said it's not as bad as Kingdom of Crystal Skull. Good news, like, but not much better. So therefore, I think like that the whole thing, that whole Indiana Jones thing, has been worn out a bit, and I think the the fact that the fourth one was lacking in certain respects, even though I kind of enjoy it in some ways, has probably been a problem. But I don't know if you go back to even say go back to the beginning, really, the Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom got some pretty bad reviews at the time, I think. So I don't know really what to think about it. I think in terms of it having a absurd kind of ending, apparently, this new one, to me, that sounds like okay, that's got my interest a bit, but um yeah, I think the kind of the Indiana Jones thing has faded somewhat, and I think it's difficult for them to fully revive it in a film now, especially with Harrison Ford being in his like late 70s when he made this. They can't really try and they have to show him of his age really, but the first 25 minutes of this are a sort of de-aged indie and things like that, which surprised me. That's a long start, but overall, I would say I'm open-minded about it. I think it's Indiana Jones. It's just popcorn movie making. I mean, could it have been better? It probably could have been, but at the same time, I get the impression that I would enjoy some aspects of this. Dan Peake says he's been watching a lot of Sam Peckinpah westerns. Wild Bunch, Pat Garrett, Ride the High Country, etc. He's a unique director. Ashton is responding about Cooper. Many friends say that Harry looks at Cooper with doe eyes as if he's in love deep down inside. And Cooper seems to know and doesn't mind it, maybe even into it. I think though, I think there is actual fan fiction out there, you know, which is about this kind of stuff. So I know it's existed for a lot of other different sort of like more teen audience big hits like the Hunger Games, or well, I'm not sure about Harry Potter, but anyway, other things. I'm not quite sure. So if I don't know if you've actually read any stuff like that, Ashton. If you have, then give us some info. But since I'm mentioning fan fiction, you yourself, despite other things that I was up to in the chat, which are not exactly ideal on my part, and I apologize for that. But on the other hand, I just wanted to say thank you to you for your sending your own fanfic novel, number one, under your pseudonym Charlotte Nightstar, and it's called the Bird Watcher. I hope you don't mind me mentioning it now, but yeah, you are spreading that yourself on social media. I don't know if you could put a link onto it, for it in the chat here or something like that, but you're more than welcome. Yeah, the CGI is awful. I think it's the CGI looks a bit kind of, yeah, just like obvious, really. And I think it's particularly difficult in the kind of action sort of setups they've got and everything. And when they're filmed in bright sunlight as well, the bits we've seen, like the part where they're falling out of the plane or that kind of buggy ride thing, it looks too obvious. And also that bit where they're in the street on the parade, and the horses and things. It's like a bit too obvious that it's not real and that it's been CGI'd because of the how brightly lit everything is. And you know people falling out of planes and things, that would have been done by stuntmen perhaps long ago. But yeah, and it might have looked like obviously a lot more convincing, um, alongside other different ways of doing these effects. Sometimes the CGI just does look a bit shonky, and I don't know. It's kind of annoying to that, but at the same time, I'm really not convinced when they put these budgets out there claiming it cost 300 million. Like, how could it cost $300 million and then come out looking not satisfactory? So, and yeah, I know the effects teams and everything working on these things are very big, but what are my thoughts on Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon? Um, well, not having really looked into it in any depth, Flossie May, but thank you for the comment. I think it looks, more than watchable for me, but I don't really know enough about it to really talk about it. But certainly the trailer I saw for it was pretty impressive in itself. It doesn't look anything kind of staggeringly amazing, but it's not really a million miles away from other things that Scorsese's been doing. Like if you go back to say the Gangs of New York, a period piece, and something like that. But this, Leonardo DiCaprio sort of probably, I don't know if he dominates the film, but he's got kind of an accent again in it, and I expect he'll be good. But I honestly don't know that much about it to really talk about it. So thank you for your question nonetheless. I mean, if you have any thoughts about it, please, come into the chat again. Dan Peak, have I watched Beau is Afraid? No, I haven't at all. It's not actually getting as wide a release as I expected locally. I think it will be at the local Quad Cinema, where this last week I saw the re-release of Raging Bull, but I was surprised. I thought it might be on at the Showcase locally in the city centre, and I would be able to see it there, but unfortunately not. I need to look into it again. Slightly surprised actually, because certainly Ari Aster's previous films would have been shown in the multiplex setting. I know it's 3 hours. I know I would probably quite enjoy it as a film, just as an experience in itself. Probably find some of it quite funny. I don't know about in terms of its portrayal of his fears or anxieties, etc., how much that would reel me in, etc. But I think it would definitely intrigue me to a large degree. Certainly, Midsummer did, which I rewatched, not the extended cut, but bit confused about that actually at the moment. And Hereditary, but I like both of those films, but it's difficult really to say much more. To be honest, I'm glad you enjoyed it anyway. So yeah, that was Raging Bull on its re-release with Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro there. Both, I kept noticing throughout the whole film how there were various actors sporting these curly-haired looks, and I can only presume that they had perms done for this film, but really, this film is a must see in a cinema release. I have seen it before, or at least most of it. I think I may have got a little bit tired of it in the past. I think, as in, it's quite slow. It's quite long and just slow paced, I should say. But certainly, it has startling moments. But they certainly work the best in a cinema setting. I think the film is I like admire it more than I actually particularly appreciate it in terms of its portrayal of Jake LaMotta and his sort of outbursts and kind of misogynistic, threatening, his wife at the time, or claiming that everybody's sleeping with her, grabbing hold of her and throwing her around, then throwing his brother around, like the violence of the ring permeating his whole life, I suppose. And it's quite clearly implied, although not really mentioned, that he is suffering some kind of brain damage. But I don't really know. I think the film was actually more of a thing that a project which Robert De Niro really wanted to make, and he sort of obviously really shows off, his ability in this film. But whilst I think some of the moments towards the end as well, there's a kind of a bit of a Lynchian moment or two towards the end. I felt may have been completely not inspired by Lynch at all, but I don't know. It's just noticeable and notable that Eraserhead came out in 1978. This is like 1980. These sort of still black and white moments where then the sound just dips down completely and there's just sort of like atmospheric background noises, and just when he's in the ring in his final fight or one of his final fights, those were particularly effective. And some of the camera work and the sound work were just stunning in this, but overall I found it pretty grueling in terms of its just unremitting misery, I suppose. Getting back to Bowie's Afraid now with Dan Peake, I liked it. It's like being the head of someone with severe anxiety. It has some very funny moments, wildly self-indulgent, but in a good way. Phantom Cooper, hello and greetings. You're just in the chat new. Replying Ashton's previous question, Cooper is definitely or absolutely bisexual. So are Big Ed and Josie. I don't know why you particularly chosen Big Ed or Josie on this one. Good one though, funny. Another thing I watched most recently is this film, The East, which is another Brit Marling affair with Alexander Skarsgård. Ellen Page is in it. Patricia Clarkson. This was written and produced and directed with the same partner she made the OA with a few years later. This is more of an ecological kind of thriller about eco-terrorist types, her being sort of an undercover agent looking into this sort of rebel group of eco warrior types, or eco terrorists more than just warriors. Overall, it was certainly watchable. I enjoy thrillers. It was a pretty modest affair in that sense, but pretty well done. It didn't have any of the sort of so much kind of metaphysical aspects or supernatural features that, say, the OA had or other Brit Marling projects, but it's certainly watchable. A modest film with just well made, but it felt rather subdued, perhaps, for me. Could have done with a few more maybe standout moments or something to just really bring it up. Yes, Brit Marling is actually doing another project, or has made it, called Retreat. That's on the FX network. That should be coming out this year, sooner rather than later, I believe. Should be worth watching for sure. So, well, I don't know what Archives Our Own is, Ashton, but some sounds like a possibility to if you want to host your writing. This is another thing that I most recently watched, which I have seen before, in fact, but wanted to really refresh my memory of, and I had seen it quite a long time ago. We need to talk about Kevin with the now infamous Ezra Miller, John C. Riley, Tilda Swinton, as you can see there on the poster for it, or this DVD cover. But yeah, as it says on the front here, Ezra Miller gives a knockout performance as Kevin, and perhaps there could have been an aspect where he was actually playing himself or concocting this figure of this persona, which he then was living out in real life. And unfortunately, so I don't really know enough about his whole misdeeds, but it's a shame, really, considering how talented he is in this film. But I've never really quite known what to make of Tilda Swinton in a way, but certainly she's well cast as his mother in this, where there's some fear of the fact that she influenced him in a way, or there's something in her character which is just like flawed and led to him being how he was in this film. But it culminates, in a certain way with him assaulting others without going into any detail. Well, with a bow and arrow, in fact. And this is sort of ushered in earlier in the film, really, when his dad's teaching him to play with her in the garden and things like. So it makes you think, considering his character and everything, might have been better not to have got him into that kind of thing. But sometimes the film feels a little bit like it wraps up a bit all too neatly in a way. But it's interesting film, not bad. Sometimes feels a little bit arty for its own sake, but it's difficult when it's dealing with such an unlikable character, um, especially in terms of the Kevin character. Um, the mother too, in a way, really. But you just saw it on the poster. What do you mean? I don't know. Anyway. Oh, okay. Okay, sorry. You watched it on. Your mum watched it the other day. Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, it's okay. It's like it leaves you a little bit blank, but it's one of those films that sort of slightly do that on a purpose, and it's got these reviews here like 5 stars, 5 stars. This is an earth-shattering film from somebody from the Times. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think really everyone can go and see a film, and everyone, like Lynch says, they have their own take on it, but their own viewpoint. And so, when critics just trash a film, it almost makes me want to see it sometimes. But um, when they go so overboard with a film like this, saying it's earth shattering, I mean, I think the topics it covers are incredibly both something, related to real life events often and real problems. Um, but, I don't know about earth shattering. This is certainly a critic's kind of really going crazy on it with that. Another thing I watched is this TV show Trust Me with Jodie Whittaker. This is not new. This is from 2017. It was BBC, as can be seen there on this DVD box. I really like Jodie Whittaker in this, and she really kind of captures your attention throughout the whole thing. She's very, very good in it as a nurse who decides to hijack the identity of her friend, who's a qualified doctor. So, it leaves a lot of things just completely hanging, though, as to, how does she manage to do all these different procedures? How can she cope if she's not like a qualified doctor and trained into that level? But it shows her, constantly trying to update her knowledge and things like this, which is all pretty unbelievable. It's pretty far fetched, but I did think it was well done. Only 4 episodes, and I thought I would just highlight it, especially because of Jodie Whittaker. Really, this is more of a film that I want to mention here, though, that I watched. I particularly enjoyed this unexpectedly. Kiefer Sutherland, Meg Ryan, Jason Gedrick, who I've never really known much of, but he was in Iron Eagle and various things, and was fairly well known in maybe TV and some American films. Tracy Pollan, again, I've never heard of her, but this film, I think it pretty much just disappeared at the time. It got very much under the radar kind of release back in 1987, but I've got to say it's a really, I was going to say standout film, but it stood out for me anyway. I would say it's uh, a gem, an overlooked gem, that kind of thing. In some ways, I think some people would probably discard it a little bit or say that it's just um, it quite doesn't quite add up, and it feels a bit like almost like scenes are missing in some ways, which I would partly agree with. It's it's showing, like Keith Sutherland in this as this rather, I don't mean to be nasty, but kind of a judgmental, like a kind of geeky character at the start, and then he goes away for 2 years. And within that time, he's just sort of living on the edge of society, really, and has hooked up with Meg Ryan's character. His hair is obviously different, but like his usual spiky look that he had back then. I mean, at the start, Kiefer Sutherland in the first scenes is shown watching his friend playing I don't really know even if he's supposed to be his friend particularly, but just sort of an acquaintance at school who's a basketball star, and he's cheering him on and everything. In those scenes, he looks like very baby-faced, almost unrecognizable from, say, The Lost Boys or playing Ace in Stand By Me. I remember this poster from the time, but I think the film pretty much just opened and then just disappeared off of cinemas, and that was the same in America and elsewhere, and then just went to video. I think what you're seeing there is the video cover of this, and it's not really a completely fair portrait of the film, but anyway, I recommend it. It's it's a mix of a sort of sentimental film on some level, and then a little bit of a wild ride in other ways, and a kind of slight craziness in some scenes, which really reminded me of only in a few scenes, but especially the way Meg Ryan was supposed to be somewhat off her tits, really, in some scenes, and they're out in the desert I don't know if they're in the flats of Utah or somewhere, but just this rather beautiful area, and they're kind of dancing around, and she's especially acting pretty crazy. There's another bit where she crashes the car. That did remind me, of like something a few years later, like Wild at Heart. So I think all these things influence each other, but it's interesting that Lynch then cast Kiefer Sutherland in Fire Walk with Me as well, really. He was an unexpected casting. Lynch must have liked him, I think. I think he could have been really good in other Lynch films, actually, in minor or bigger roles, really. Yeah, I remember seeing this poster. I think it was probably quite well advertised in terms of its video release, probably through Warner's or something. It's quite a well done poster, and making it look like a decent film. But I think the problem with the film is it's just uneven, and it sort of portrays the more crazy characters alongside the ones living in this town who he becomes a member of the police force and everything. And so it's sort of about this, the clash between Beast and then this other couple who are completely wild, really. But it all seems at times, again, it kind of stretches believability, but I still really recommend it. I think the director of this, who I've forgot their name, is really good as well, and he went on to make another interesting film after this, which is probably very hard to get hold of. Let me just look for the title of it, actually. Promised Land, 1987, not the 2012 film of the same name. I think Promised Land is quite an okay title for it, but it's a little bit. That's probably one problem with it. Like this film made $316,000, sorry, in the US release. It's like, I mean, maybe it was a limited release or something, but this is obviously not exactly very successful. So makes you wonder. I think the cast were a problem for this. Like, I don't think Meg Ryan was that well known by then, but I think it just wasn't distributed that well. Something like that. Yeah, the director is Michael Hoffman. He had quite an interesting sort of whole stream of films, and let me just look through all of his films here. Born in Hawaii. Good for you. Well, yeah, he made a film called Privileged in 1982, then Restless, which has Hugh Grant in it. And I noted that one of the main cast members in Privilege was a Robert Woolley, which obviously made me interested because it's part of my name. Anyway, Restless Natives was his second film, 1985, a Scottish film which was quite successful, I think, a comedy. A Scottish youths who decide to become modern highwaymen. That's one I need to watch. Anyway, after Promised Land, he made Some Girls, which again is a film that I've barely ever really heard much about. It's a 1988 American coming-of-age film starring Patrick Dempsey, Jennifer Connelly, Sheila Kelly, Lilla Kedrova, and Andre Gregory. I don't know why I read all those out, but yeah. Sort of sounds like a bit of one of the Brat Pack type films, a bit of a late Brat Pack film, but yeah, I was never a massive fanatic for Patrick Dempsey, but if it's got Jennifer Connelly in it, it could be worth watching that one. Then a few years later, he made Soap Dish, which is fairly well heard about, with Robert Downey Jr. is in that, Sally Field, it's Kevin Kline and various others, Whoopi Goldberg. He went on to make more pretty big Hollywood films like One Fine Day with Michelle Pfeiffer and George Clooney, A Midsummer Night's Dream, The Emperor's Club. Then kind of faded from view a bit, made a film that I've never heard of called Game 6 that's got Michael Keaton in it. Then he made Gambit, which was a remake. Colin Firth, Cameron Diaz, Alan Rickman, Stanley Tucci. Remake of the same film starring Shirley MacLaine and Michael Caine. Then in 2017, what's the reason I carried on giving you all of this boring information, he made a film called Gore, which was about Gore Vidal. American intellectual, and it starred Kevin Spacey as the titular character. The movie was filmed in 2017, due for release in 2018, but this release was cancelled after scandal broke out when Spacey's sexual misconduct, Jesus Christ, was revealed in late. Oh dear, mate. Anyway, that's enough of that. The career of Michael Hoffman, director. Very interesting, I'm sure. Ever watched Daniel Isn't Real? I've heard of that one, Ashton, actually. 2019. Does have Mary Stuart Masterson in it. Talking of the Brat Pack, but so basically, a character, Luke, can see somebody called Daniel. I presume when he's a youngster. The actual the poster of this made me think that it was a horror film. Well, anyway, what did you think of that one then, Ashton? Imprint Films just announced a box set of Jennifer Connelly films, says Gary. What? What, like career opportunities? I found that somewhere and I was going to watch it a bit, and then I thought, no, it's okay. It's just. I can't remember the main actor in it. The guy has not really been a lead in many things, but he was in Pulp Fiction, where she's lying on the couch and gets shot eventually. That actor is in it, but let me just check this Jennifer Connelly box set. Coming from Imprint on August 30th. Now we know what you're reading, Gary. Blu-ray.com. Nice, very nice. Oh, I actually did watch the Banshees of Inisherin, and I wasn't quite sure what the fuss was about with that, but I thought it was going to be funnier than it was actually. So it's rather a sad film, actually. So yeah, it has got career opportunities in it. What a bizarre collection of films. I suppose they're going for different kind of genres or types of films, really. Career opportunities, Waking the Dead. Which I've never seen. I remember that film, Waking the Dead. Maybe quite good. Is it Billy Crudup in that one? Yeah. He was kind of like popular for that year about, and then just sort of like faded off, really. And House of Sand and Fog, 2003. I can't believe that film is 20 years ago now. That is a pretty good film, as I recall. Rather good for its very straightforward basis in being, just about this battle over a house, really, and focusing in on that. All three films are probably of interest. That's a really interesting collection of films there from Imprint. I don't ever remember career opportunities being regarded very well, particularly getting very good reviews or anything. But it probably, especially time has, rather helped it gain, a certain interest, and certain qualities are brought out, really. Ashton responds with, I thought Daniel Isn't Real was good, interesting, and psychological. Patrick Schwarzenegger was good in it. Yeah, I would like to see that now then, Ashton, so I will write that one down. I've seen it before, browsing online places, but you just they change everything around, and you know what? I don't know if you've ever really browsed through Netflix a lot. I'm sure many people have, but it's just so lacking in older films, particularly. I don't know. It really is just a question of pot luck. But as far as Netflix is concerned, they don't have, they have very few films before, say, made before 1970. And then their collection of like more modern films, which I would say anything from the 90s onwards as well, is not as good, not that great either. They've got like ones that are really popular mostly, but they don't have anything particularly uh just anything all that kind of interesting. And as far as their like dramas and everything at the moment, Netflix really needs to improve the quality of its output. I presume you mean the one Waking the Dead, which of course there was a TV show in the UK called that, so it's a bit confusing. Yeah. Well, anyway, thank you for that, Ashton, and thank you, Gary, as well. Phantom Cooper's being unusually quiet. That I presume that's because Voltaire's not here this week. Um, but you know, let's see what happens. In terms of when people come into the chat sometimes or online, they ask, "Do you know what's happening with Twin Peaks and Lynch and all this kind of thing?" And I think it's a fair question, especially now that we're at the 6-year anniversary of the return. It's I think just my own viewpoint on all of that kind of thing. I think it's entirely possible that we'll get something new from Lynch, working with Krista Bell, Carl McLaughlin. I mean, why he wouldn't grab Ray Wise and say, "Come and do this thing with me," etc. Especially since he wasn't in much of the return. I don't know. And yes, it could be related to Twin Peaks in some way. I think that's all entirely possible. It's interesting how Lynch has basically had radio silence online since last November or so, November, December. And Krista Bell basically went offline on all social media at exactly the same time. So I would hope that they were doing something together and it not just recording an album. But who knows? Yeah, I completely agree with you, Davrin, on Mindhunter. I will say that. Why they cancelled it, I have no idea. When it's David Fincher, I mean, we don't have any idea whatsoever of any viewing figures and things like this for Netflix, but a show like that, it could easily have been moderately successful, if not more so. I think throughout many countries, and so why they would just suddenly cancel it, I don't know. It doesn't make sense exactly. Um, Only briefly been in contact with Voltaire. Um, I mean, he's just taking time off from doing this. He said, which is completely understandable. Um, like last week, I was being critical sometimes of people on the video with me, like saying to Voltaire, like, do you even like films and things? Because he was saying that he liked The Pope's Exorcist, and I don't know what led me to say that, but I don't know. I hate to think that I've made. I don't think I've kind of, it's not like I'm making Voltaire stressed, but yeah, he might have felt like he was trying to carry the whole thing, carry the video by going into all the different references and things that he was finding online of films coming out and stuff. But I mean, I had quite a lot of films to talk about today, and doing a show which is just an hour or whatever is fine by me. There's no need for to be doing shows that go on for a long, long time unless it's planned out, really. Yeah, Dark Crystal and the Age of Resistance, or what was it called? Something like that. Yeah, I don't really know. I don't know about the cost of these things. It could be to do with like how popular they are. Um, they want everything to be a big, big hit, and so if it's not seen as that, maybe they're just all too ready to just go, okay, that's it. After 2 seasons, let's do something else. But it's a shame. I mean, I think Mindhunter, they could have had they could have found it maybe a bit too dingy and dark, almost like Seven-ish at times. But I don't know about that. I think the characters in it were rather good, and you had that to sort of get into, and but there's all sorts of one-off series like this. So the one called Manhunt Unabomber, which had Paul Bettany in, and that was really good. But I don't know how to find it now online. So they just always seem to be just changing over to do a new thing rather than carry on making something for 5 seasons or more. So well, they do fritter money on away on Stranger Things, but on the other hand, they're not really frittering it away. Although I think that Netflix is in debt still, but I don't know really how the sense behind it all. I think Stranger Things is just such a phenomenon. It's like this mainstream show which presents itself as a cult show, which is in itself, quite a trick. Not a particularly impressive one for people like us, but you know, you, when you can buy so many different pieces of merchandise in terms of Stranger Things, then it really is just a money making machine. Even though the show itself doesn't necessarily, well, it's okay, but it's not like not necessarily warranting the level of interest it garners, I would say. Mindhunter won a ton of serious critical praise and loyal viewership. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, with the Mindhunter series, are they available on Blu-ray or anything now? Because I know there's a thing where Netflix is quite, or sometimes not all things are released to home viewing, but it did get a lot of critical praise and loyal viewers, as you say. So it doesn't make sense why they don't seem to care about just alienating swathes of their subscriber base. And so, there have actually been millions of people who've unsubscribed from Netflix, unsurprisingly. So when you look through a lot of the shows and things, they look like there's a real onus or like a real focus, I mean, on sci-fi type things or action serials. Just, I don't know. I'm not really sure what the hell's going on with Netflix at the moment, to be honest. But yeah, Unabomber, I highly recommend that one. So it's called Manhunt Unabomber. Certainly on the UK Netflix it was. Now it's not on UK Netflix anymore. You can buy it on DVD and things, but it's not exactly widely available. I thought it was very well done, actually, the one with Paul Bettany at the time. Well, yeah, that's probably the secret of its success, the rip-off aspect. So I think, like, the young actors and actresses in it give it a certain quality to it throughout. It's up and down somewhat. They're not brilliant, but they're okay. Some are definitely better than others, I think. I don't really know if it has an original idea at all. Like hovering up in like 12 foot up in the air or something, or higher, and then having your eyes go all white whilst looking upwards. I've not seen that exactly done in a film before, but at the same time, it doesn't strike me as entirely original. And the whole Vecna thing in it is almost a bit Nightmare on Elm Street in a way, really, especially in the last film. So, The Boyfriend School, aka Don't Tell Her It's Me. It was called, yeah, Don't Tell Her It's Me. Here, Kyle MacLachlan and Machen Amick. I don't think they were that Machen was the main star, though, was she? Alongside Kyle. That's something which came out, oh right, yeah. Is Kyle in it? Oh, obviously he's not in a big, particularly. Yeah, Steve Guttenberg. As soon as these actors and actresses got roles in Twin Peaks, it seemed they were just immediately called up for other things. So. Yeah, I think if you're a fan of Steve Guttenberg in any films, Ashton, you should have you watched Can't Stop the Music, the film that he made, which was like a Village People musical. I mean, that's unbelievable, really. What I've seen of it. I honestly don't know about a second season of Manhunt. I think there could have been, yeah. But of course, it would have been just something totally different, a total or unattached to the first one, because they can just cover a different investigation with each one. So there's no through line like with Mindhunter or something like that. I mean, the thing with Manhunt is I found it on Netflix, and that was after Mindhunter had started, and so I was a little bit confused at first. Like, what is this? This sounds a bit similar to Mindhunter, but yeah. What, they started filming Nightmare on Elm Street 2 without Robert Englund, then you're saying, Gary? Well, I saw a clip of Robert Englund talking about in the first Nightmare on Elm Street, and the stunt double they had for him was um was obviously like completely different, not as tall as him and everything. And I presume that was in the first film. So Steve Guttenberg, there's a blast from the past. Exactly. But I think at the same time, if you go on YouTube and look for, um, well, it's not hard to Google him, Davern, please. He is alive, yes. Why would he not be? Um, he's jogging through the park in New York City, in Central Park, and he's just like jogging around with no bottoms on. He's not got shorts on even, so his genitalia is just blowing in the wind. There's somebody just filming him from a way off, saying, "Oh, is that Steve Guttenberg?" Yes, it was all set up. It's a joke, but pretty funny, I've got to admit. Slightly disturbing, yes. I don't really want to see, Stephen Guttenberg's butt cheeks in Central Park, but I am a fan of Midnight Cowboy on having viewed it once, Dan. What's the famous song from that? Ashton says, I only like the first Nightmare on Elm Street and absolutely hated the second one and refused to watch others after. I imagine other people felt the same, really, because I can't really remember, but if there was nothing about the second one which was particularly good, whereas the first one, and so it sort of took my attention away from it. But I think the thing is, the third one is supposed to be really good, and I've never really watched it all actually, which I should. So, Dream Warriors is supposed to be very good. So, I know that Cameron's a fan of it, and Dream Warriors, the soundtrack is by Angelo Badalamenti. So, oh, okay, thanks, Gary. Same with Hellraiser. After I saw how awful the third one is. Well, yeah. I mean, only the first two are really must sees if you're into that kind of thing. And even the second one is a bit dodgy. So, yeah, Everybody's Talking by Nilsson. You're right. Thank you for the reminder. Okay, everybody. This is obviously just coming in at 1 hour 15 now. It's only me, so a shorter show, of course. But I really appreciate anybody here who might be watching, and people who've left comments. Of course, thank you very much. So, thank you very much. It's just me on a Sunday night saying to you, I hope you have a good week and wishing you all the best. Wishing you all a damn good cup of coffee somewhere in the trees, and go and read Ashton's fanfic. I'm sure you'll find her somewhere. Bye for now. See you in the trees.